York's classic rock, Q104-3.
Joe Elliott is with us of Def Leppard here at Q104-3. We were just speaking while you were listening to the song about the anonymity of rock star life in some cases, with the exception of certain superstars who are so famous their life becomes miserable and they can't be normal. Many people who do legitimately have the rock star title can actually live pretty normal lives, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think when you first hit, no matter who you are, you're going to be like up in the, you're going to be open and seen because you're going to be in all the papers, you're going to be on TV, and then eventually you kind of just move into the mainstream, if you like, of life. Mm-hmm. And you can still be selling out tickets everywhere, but you're not making the front page anymore. You're still famous. I mean, even Gene Simmons, who was on TV like every day, could probably, with a baseball cap on, get away with nipping out to the supermarket and nobody'd know who he was.
I don't know about that. And I don't know that he would do that.
Stanley then,
yeah, Paul Stanley, more likely.
Paul Stanley, because
Gene wouldn't let an opportunity go to waste.
No, Gene would be sticking his tongue out at the cashier.
Very true.
Or at the butcher, yeah.
But your Peter Framptons of this world who are very well respected, or Joe Walsh or something like that, even Ringo, could probably sneak into a Arby's for a sandwich and nobody'd really care.
But that's great for you, right? I mean,
I have no problem with it.
I mean, there is a point.
I've always wanted to be recognized at 9 o'clock when I go on and the lights go down. I don't really care. We always say about ego, hang it on a hook when you get off stage, because you just become part of the human race when you get off stage.
Well, if you were to look at the history of Def Leppard, do you know in the United States, Def Leppard had 19 hit singles. Okay, 19. Of course, there were the huge hit albums too, but 19 hit singles. That means we need to get one more.
Yeah.
To round it off at 20.
Round it off, yeah.
That's
nice
why
round
we always
number.
be very proud of the Vault album, because when it says greatest hits, it actually is. Mm-hmm. It's not a best of. Mm-hmm. It's because a best of is arguable. You can also, you could take a track like Gods of War and have it on a best of, because maybe it's better than a couple of the hit singles, but they were all hits, so we can actually legitimately say greatest hits. I mean, I've seen some greatest hits albums by artists. You're going, well, truth be known, if it was greatest hits, it would be a double A-sided single.
Right.
But they managed to find 10 other tracks to throw in there. So it's not really a greatest hits. It's Trey's description acts,
Uh-huh. Well, you were such a young kid when Def Leppard hit.
Yeah.
How old were you?
Well, when we formed the band in September 77, and Rick Allen was only just 15 when he joined us.
Wow.
The year after that. But I was 18, Sav was 16 or 17, Pete Willis was 16 or 17, Steve Clark was 18 when he joined us, and Rick Allen was 15.
So all teenagers.
Well, so when we did the first album, I was 20, and everybody else was a year or two younger than me.
Right, so is there anything that can prepare you for the kind of life that you're propelled into?
The history of rock and roll that came before us prepared us. I mean, we were the best students of rock and roll I think there's ever been. Mm-hmm. We knew it inside out. We used to read cover to cover, Record Mirror, NME, Sounds, Melody Maker, Disc. Mm-hmm. We'd listen to every specialist show that played the rock music. So there was a lot of bands that we weren't aware of because they legitimately did not get over the Atlantic. Bands like Black Oak, Arkansas, Grand Funk Railroad, we'd heard of them, but we never heard them.
So did you have a formula?
Well, those were American bands.
Yes, they were. But all the English bands, very good, nice,
yes,
nice pun. But obviously, without blowing the British trumpet too hard, all the greatest rock bands, when they do the Ultimate Rock Band book, are all going to be British. It's the Beatles, the Stones, the Who, Pink Floyd, Zeppelin, Sabbath, etc., etc. The first big band to break the UK on a big level was Boston in '76, and then Van Halen a bit.
Right, and that was mostly just Tom Schultz putting it all together in his basement.
Yeah, and then after that, for a band that actually could come over and play stadiums, it was 1985-86 when Bon Jovi broke. Mm-hmm.
But wait a minute, when you said you were studying all these groups, so are you saying you had a formula?
No, not a formula. We just had an idea of how to do it. We'd seen what not to do.
Well, you see, the reason why I asked the question is because we're talking about Def Leppard 3 decades later.
Sure.
And Def Leppard is still one of the most successful bands in the world. And there are other groups of talented teenagers or kids in their early 20s that have put out good records and then disappeared. They just could not sustain a career
what
over
we
time.
had going for us was we were very opinionated based on other people's success. We go, well, you know, they did this and they did that, so we should do that. This lot did that and it all went wrong, so let's not go there. Like, great example, one of the best songwriters of all time is Ray Davies. But for some reason, the Kinks had a period that was so successful that they literally couldn't keep it going. Whereas somebody like The Who might not have been quite as successful in the UK as the Kinks from a hit single point of view, but their sustained career went much longer. So we would say take what Ray Davies had done for those 2 or 3 years and go, well, that's the way to go from a musical point of view. Why did it all start going south? Was it because he used to beat his brother to bits and vice versa? Was it an internal fraction thing? Why were The Who so successful? Why did they manage to kind of carry on even after Keith Moon died? What was it? Was Townsend more genius than Ray Davies? It's an arguable thing, but these were the kind of things that we'd sit around and discuss when we weren't playing. And
maybe never work with your brother.
Yeah. Well, I didn't have.
They
a brother,
say
so
working
I
with
was fine.
family.
Yeah, that's good advice.
Right?
Yeah, yes.
There are a few. I mean,
There's the Gallaghers.
when you think about it,
There's
David
Knopflers.
Knopfler didn't last long in Dire
Right,
Straits, you know.
exactly.
Eventually, Oasis couldn't. act
They
it anymore,
imploded.
You know, there are a few. You know, I mean, but then again, you've got Simon and Garfunkel who aren't related, and they can't really get on with
Yeah,
each other.
exactly.
Right.
So it's all down to personalities, and we were always aware of the fact that a long time before the show X Factor, the phrase X Factor was, if you're lucky enough to have the chemistry, there's no reason why you can't have it forever. You know, and you just have to make sure that you don't let the ego get in the way of things. And we've always said that the most important thing that we'll ever do is a song. It's not taking it to New Zealand or coming to New York with it. It's just doing it. And then it's got a life of its own, and it's either going to be a hit or it's not. But if it's a good song, it will always be a good song. And that's where all our energy goes, is trying to coming up with great songs, like all the bands that we grew up listening to. When you've heard things like Behind Blue Eyes or My Generation or, you know, the first 3 or 4 Kinks singles, things like You Really Got Me and All Day and All the Night, and even stuff like Arnold Lane and See Emily Play by the Syd Barrett Pink Floyd, and the Steve Marriott stuff in the Small Faces and the Beatles and the Stones, and they've seen the progress of specifically those two bands, how they went from this tiny little transistorized hit singles in '63 all the way to this massive, gigantic, stereophonic I Am the Walrus type stuff, and seeing the progress and going, that's the way to do it, you know. On the coattails of all the greats, that's what we've tried to do.
Joe Elliott of Def Leppard with us here at Q104-3. So quickly, your favorite recording artists when you were growing up, not when you already were in a band, but when you were a kid.
Well-known fact, my favourite ever band of all time is Mott the Hoople.
Yes, well, of course, that's your side project
The
as
Down and
well.
Outs, we pretty much do all their stuff,
Yeah.
yeah. But the first record I ever bought was Every Picture Tells a Story by Rod Stewart. First album I ever bought.
Have you ever had a chance to tell him that?
Not to his face, no. When I met him once in an elevator, we just talked soccer.
Well, actually, that's what
The Brits.
that's what he likes to talk about all the time.
It would have been a weird thing. Hey, Rod, guess what? The first record I ever bought was yours. You know, I think he'd have thought I was stalking him. The first album I ever owned was Electric Warrior by T-Rex in '71. The first single I ever bought was Sugar Sugar by the Archies.
Oh, I'm gonna have to.
that's so
I'm gonna have to
funny.
call my friend Ron Dante and tell him that.
Who would have thought that?
I was 9. I thought it was a great. I still do to this day. I think it's a great song.
Well, it is a great song.
It's a great song.
It is a great song.
I've actually been known to go onto a very famous Los Angeles show similar to this and play the Osmonds' Crazy Horses.
Oh, that's a great metal song.
Damn right. Yeah, absolutely.
Crazy
And
horses.
they go, "The Osmonds," they didn't even know it, so they got it off YouTube and they played it. They went, "It sounds like Black Sabbath." Hardly, but I know where they were coming from.
that is really a mind-altering experience if you're not prepared for it to hear that song by the Osmonds.
Well, I swear to God, a bit like when you're a kid and you go to buy your first condom and you put a bag over your head and you walk into the chemist and you go, "Arr." Everybody bought that song that I know, but they all came out of the shop with a brown paper bag and it tucked under their arms. They didn't want everybody to know that they were buying Osmond singles because they were all Bowie and Slade and T-Rex fans. And
Well,
it wasn't cool to like Donnie and the crowd.
Well,
you know?
I'm telling you, Joe, that before this day is over, I'm going to tell Ron Dante that the first record you owned, which you still love,
I still actually have it.
because he's the guy that sang it. Sugar Sugar.
I thought it was Andy Kim that sang it.
Andy Kim wrote it.
Oh, right, okay.
Ron Dante
Got my
sang
facts
it.
wrong. I was close. Yeah, I still actually have the one I bought in 1969. I still have the 7-inch single. Of course,
Really?
I've now got an MP3 of it, but I've still got the very first single.
Of course, that was the year of Woodstock, but Sugar Sugar was actually the #1 song of the year in
Oh, yeah, well,
1969.
you see, the thing is, pop music will always usurp rock music because that's why it's called pop. It's popular. And it crosses all divides. Nobody has to worry about credibility when you're a pop star. You only worry about credibility when you're a rock star.
Interesting. That's true.
Now, Down and Outs,
Mm-hmm.
before we get to the North American tour for Def Leppard, Down and Outs, this is a project that comes, from deep down inside your heart. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
if you have to spend your money and lose it doing Down and Outs, you're going to do it.
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay. And
It's better than climbing Mount Everest and having to buy all that tackle. Yeah.
but it's like you fell in love with Mott the Hoople. You are a major rock star that's actually had more success than Mott the Hoople did, and yet your side project is a tribute band to Mott the Hoople.
Yeah, well, I don't like the word tribute
I
band.
understand, but you know what I'm saying.
It just makes it sound like some kind of, I don't know, second division thing. But
No,
I
but
know,
you're
I know what you mean.
Right,
but
you're trying to turn
me,
people on to their music.
People like, loads of people have done this. Eric Clapton did an album purely of Robert Johnson songs, and there's probably a history of people that have done a tribute to
Yeah, but you created a whole.
It's like an honoring.
But you created a whole
effort.
separate
But
band,
what I
and
tried
you
to
go out
do-
and perform.
I put these albums out, and to the unbeknowing, they would hear them as new songs, not like, because mostly a tribute thing, you would know what you're tributing to. If it was like a tribute to Frank Sinatra by Michael Bublé, you're going to get Fly Me to the Moon.
No, Bob Dylan just did it.
Yeah, exactly, that kind of thing.
Which
but there's
we
very
still
few
can't wrap our
songs
heads
on the
around.
Down and Outs albums that you'd have heard before, because I didn't go for Honolulu Boogieing all the way from Memphis and all the young dudes. I went for the obscure, like Marionette and Rock and Roll Queen. I actually heard a fact the other day, because now because of digital and computers and all this lot, you can get facts and figures. You don't even want them. You just get them thrown at you by record execs or management. But our version of Rock and Roll Queen, which has only been available since May of last year, has got more airplay in America than the original has in 45 years. And I find that kind of wrong, because it's like, well, it's a great song. Why did nobody ever play the original? All I've tried to do is really just throw a new light on these songs. I can brag all I like about these songs because they're not mine. So I can say these songs are amazing, which I'd feel a bit weird if I was presenting the new Leppard record and saying that, because, it's too kind of big-headed to brag about your own songs. But when all you've done is recording other people's, all you're really doing is bringing a light to them, going, why does nobody play these anymore? Why have we got this playlist of 450 songs that nobody will dare go past? So all due respect, we get to hear Sweet Home Alabama every minute of every day, and Stairway to Heaven and Smoke on the Water. There's more to rock than those kind of songs, and that we're, and no doubt we're in that pile as well of like,
Yes,
you
you
played
are.
too often, It's like, can't we just go a little deeper? And I figured, well, maybe if I do a version of it, somebody will play it. And lo and behold, we had Rock and Roll Queen was the second most played song on American radio this summer for a few weeks, and 4 years ago on the first album, we had a #1 and a #5 airplay songs on songs that didn't even make the top 100 on their original release. It's it's crazy. So yeah, it's a huge passion of mine, and it's just something that I've it's just an extension of me. I have the energy to do it, and I like doing it, and I think it does the world a good to kind of get these out into the open and go, listen to these songs. Because if I had my own radio show, which I do actually, I would be playing these songs on the air, but I only get an hour a week. It's just not long enough to kind of bash people on the head with
See,
other
so
songs.
even you have to limit the playlist, and you don't want to.
Only because of time. If I had 4 hours, seriously, I don't play the standard stuff on my show. I go deeper than deep as often as possible, unless I'm paying tribute to somebody who passed away. Like the other week, I played Brown Sugar and Stay With Me because of the fact that Bobby Keys and Ian McLagan died 2 days apart, But generally speaking, I'd be playing Bad and Ruin, or I'd be playing something obscure off His Majesty's Satanic Request.
Or Sugar Sugar?
Rather than, that doesn't really fit the format.
Okay.
See? Even there.
But I have played Crazy Horses on my rock show.
You
I
have?
have, absolutely. Dare to play? You bet. And I hit the button, and off it went.
Joe Elliott of Def Leppard with us. Your North American summer tour features Styx
Yes.
and Tesla.
Two bands that we've toured with in the past. Great
And,
people.
Well, Tesla and Styx and Def Leppard both have so much experience going out on the road and performing before.
Well, Tesla opened
big
for us on
crowd.
the Hysteria tour for about a year, and they were just fantastic. They were just on their way up then. We toured with Styx in 2007, I think it was, with them in REO Speedwagon. And I have to say, Tommy Shaw is one of my favourite people in the world. He's such a nutbag. He's a complete. Every birthday I get this weird message from him and his missus.
Well, I think
Video, not they film themselves and they do something weird and wacky. I love them.
I
They're
think
great guys.
the point I'm trying to make is that all of these bands have been road bands, have been bands that
Yeah.
have never stopped going out on the road year after year after year and performing for.
But it's
big,
what we do.
appreciative crowds.
That's what I mean. When
But
you
it's-
when
but it's
you're
not
in a
what
band,
every-
But you
it's not
still
what everybody does.
can.
well, you know what?
yes.
For my generation, when we grew up, we as I said to you earlier, we were very limited on what we heard on the radio. We didn't hear a lot. We had to go mining for it. You had to go looking for it. You didn't hear Bad Motor Scooter by Montrose on the BBC. You heard about it from somebody's bigger brother who'd got some underground copy of this record, and you go, wow, this is great. And you formed an affiliation with it because it was physical, as opposed to downloads, which aren't really. And you'd go and stand in the rain at the bus stop to go into town to buy the album, and you'd show it up your coat so the sleeve didn't get wet, and you'd hope that it wouldn't get bent. So, we loved all that music. But the thing about music when I was growing up was going to see these bands live. And maybe not so much now, but our generation, whether it be Duran Duran or Iron Maiden, bands that came up in 78, 79, 1980, the reason we joined a band was to go and play live. You didn't say, I want to be in a band so I can go in the studio. You wanted to get up on a pedestal and play and wear stupid clothes and scream and have a massive PA and big light show. It was all about getting on stage.
And you'll be on stage at the Nikon at Jones Beach Theater on July 23rd and at the PNC Bank Arts Center in New Jersey on July 25th. And tickets go on sale starting Friday the 28th at 10 o'clock in the morning through Live Nation. But if you're one of those city private pass people, you have a pre-sale, and the special people get tickets on February 18th at 12 noon. So if you are a City Card member, you get pre-sale tickets, which go on sale today at noon.
Wow.
Nice.
Yeah, man, that's great.
Yeah, rest of us have to wait.
Yeah, you got to wait, I'm afraid. Or maybe we can put you in the back of the queue, you'll be fine. We'll look after you.
When I was a kid listening to the radio, I had no idea what a queue was. I was listening to Bus Stop by the Hollies, and I didn't understand the song because I didn't know that queue meant line.
Oh, you mean get in line? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like lift. Nobody knows it.
Well, that's an elevator. We know that now, but not.
And then there's the aluminum and aluminium. We could go on forever here on the you say potato and I say potato.
Well, they say the British and Americans are separated by a common language.
Mm-hmm. Very true. Yeah. And it's one of the strangest languages ever because nearly every word's got two meanings, as Robert Plant pointed out to us in Stairway to Heaven.
Well, we are always appreciative when you find the time to come and visit with us here.
Always
at
a pleasure.
Q104-3.
Always a pleasure.
And
can I just say, if anybody wants to know the 48 or so dates so far that are going to go up on sale, all the details are not in my head because I can't remember the order, but defleppard.com's got everything.